to my first guest of the day, Paul Renner, a gubernatorial candidate in the state of Florida, who's on a tour. That's right, he is on tour. He's not on stage. He's not breaking out the guitar. Well, maybe he is, but he is talking about issues that matter to Floridians, frankly, to all Americans, with his tour across the state of Florida, which began yesterday in Miami, working his way all the way to the Pensacola side of things. Paul, great to have you here. How are you?
Great to be with you. Great to be with you, David.
All right, let's get to it. Affordability Now tour. And you know what? Even in the state of Florida, state that's doing very well, there are challenges for many. And rather than just stick with the Democrat talking points, I'd like to stick with the facts. So let's talk about affordability in Florida, the challenges, how you would approach it if elected governor.
Sure, and a lot of it's we're victims of our success. We've done so well. So many people want to be here that the rush of people into Florida has driven up housing prices, which in turn drives up property taxes, insurance, you name it. And we've got some other things that we need to address. And fundamentally, let's start with property taxes. As conservatives, we believe that government should never go faster than our incomes can afford. But that is exactly what's happened at the local level. There's been a huge windfall. And so what we're doing now, I called for affordability and had a plan rolled out, when I first got in the election. So we're really kind of focusing now on what does a property tax reform look like, because we have to end up better than where we start if we're going to undertake this big change in how we tax at the local level to provide police, fire, et cetera. And so we're having those conversations, but I'll be rolling out in the next couple of weeks the boldest property tax reform of any candidate in this race. It's going to give major, major relief, not just to homestead properties, but also to small mom and pop businesses, to people who rent. It's high time we do that. Government's got to tighten its belt so people can afford to live here in Florida.
As you've started the tour yesterday and you're out there talking to people, what are you hearing from, and two groups initially, but broaden it if you will, seniors and newcomers to the state?
Well, for seniors, we had a lady in Miami who's lived there, I think, her whole life. And, she's been in the same home for 30 years or more and says she may not be able to keep her house. And so this is something, as the next governor of the state of Florida, I just won't let this happen. We've got to make sure that we're addressing people on fixed income can simply not keep up. And so you have people that have already left Florida, have already left their homes, lost their homes to move to another state, to a cheaper place, move in with a relative. This is not the kind of situation we want to permit here in Florida, but we're going to have conservative solutions to that, not the Zoran Mondami, everything will be free, and then he gets into office and just raises your taxes. We're going to cut taxes. We're going to also have aggressive spending restraints and savings before we ever raise a dollar of replacement taxes. But with the bold plan I have, there will be have to be some replacement taxes to cover essential government services. But we're going to start by saving billions of dollars through a multitude of different approaches. And so we're taking this to the communities to say, what do you like? What do you think should happen? How do we best provide these services, but also provide huge relief to working men and women, people that are struggling to make ends meet? And we're going to do that when I'm governor.
One of the other issues on the table, and of course as a veteran, you also have some insight into this, and we've discussed it before, is what's going on in the Middle East. That's top of mind. It is frankly, an hourly news release in many ways. And one of the issues in Florida, and something that we're seeing more on display now, the videos are out there. This is no longer conspiracy or conjecture. It's very real. There are those that wish to impose Sharia law in some way. So address the issue of what needs to be done, one, with Sharia law in the state of Florida or anywhere in the United States.
Well, I've gone a little bit farther than that, and to say that, I spent 20 years over in the Middle East in two wars, Desert Storm and Afghanistan, 20 years apart, and we were told we have to fight them abroad so we don't have to fight them here at home, and then we welcome them here at home. And fundamentally, I believe that Islam is not compatible with the American constitutional order and with the American way of life, which goes beyond just talking about Sharia law, but that's where it ultimately goes, is that it's simply not compatible. And that's not a statement of hatred or hostility. It's just a statement of fact. And I can point you to there was a Muslim student who said the very same thing, is that Islam does not intend to coexist with any other system, including the American constitutional order. And so we have to be realistic about that. I called for a complete ban on any further immigration from those countries, to deport those like in Minnesota. The guy that killed a lieutenant colonel in Old Dominion was a naturalized citizen who was prosecuted for ties to terror and released early, David. Released early, and then went and killed somebody. He should have been denaturalized and deported out of the country. And the reality is, everywhere where Islam has mixed with non-Muslim countries, it's led to conflict, division, and ultimately violence. And if it's only 1 out of 1,000 people, should we let another 1,000 in, or another 10,000, or 1 million? The answer is no. And to your point, we have 500,000 Muslims in the state of Florida. I'm sure many are good neighbors, but the reality is many are saying the things that you're seeing. You alluded to these videos, that they intend to dominate and force us to assimilate to their way of life, and I'm not going to have it as governor. We're going to take measurable steps to stop these enclaves that you see in Europe. We're not going to let that happen on my watch as governor.
One of the, I don't want to say the counter argument, but just to expand the topic a bit more, are from those who say, okay, and I've gone to mosques in past years with camera crews and asked which supersedes, right, the Constitution or Sharia law. And in New York City, where I did that, in other areas where I did that, it was about Sharia law. Is there any path to compatibility, coexistence, real coexistence, not just a path towards conquest?
I don't think so. And look at Iran. I mean, the Iranian regime is a great example, and they're killing their own people. Many, and I'm sure all of them would call themselves Muslims, but the tendency, and you see this over and over again, over 1,000 years of history, that when large groups of Muslims move into a non-Muslim nation, like America in this case, it ultimately leads to conflict, division, and then open violence. And again, it's not every person, and it's not a statement of hostility. It's simply a statement of fact. History proves this. And so we need to be steely-eyed, realistic, and know that long-term this will cause major problems for our country, as it has in Europe. You see the tepid response from European nations on Iran, and that's because politically they can't say any differently. And so you have these no-go zones where women can be attacked in neighborhoods they grew up in, and the police refuse to go in and investigate because they're afraid to do so. We cannot allow that to happen. It's just a very, very different system. And again, we should have friends in the Middle East. I worked well with Muslim, soldiers and the Egyptians and Desert Storm, and we should have friends in Muslim nations. But we're better off maintaining friendships where they're in the Middle East or they're in their own countries and we're in ours, not mixing. And so I think it's important that we push back against any further immigration from these nations. We have to stop it now, or we're going to see more and more attacks, more and more terrorist attacks on our innocent civilians. And as governor, I'm going to protect the citizens of Florida. That's my first job, and I'm going to do it.
What would you say, Paul, and I realize we have a hard out, but quick answer on this. What would you say to the nations that are our partners in the Middle East, UAE, Qatar, Saudi? They have their conflicts within, to be fair, but what would you say to those who want a Western coexistence?
Well, I mean, I think with those nations and with Muslims, abroad, we certainly want to be friends with anyone who wants to be friends with us. And so we do have allies, I think, in the Middle East, or people that will work with us. And that's a good thing. We should encourage that. So my statement is not one of hostility to Muslim nations at all. I think that's where we can have great friendships. I'm saying that coming into this country, there's just not going to be a mix long term. Unlike any other group that's immigrated into the country, they simply, as a system, do not intend to assimilate. They intend to force us to assimilate to their viewpoint. And that's just something we have to face and say, no more immigration from those places.
Paul Renner, gubernatorial candidate in the state of Florida. The website, voterenner.com. Paul, thank you.